A true fan of the creepypasta world knows that besides Slenderman, there are more characters from the Slender family. Splendorman, Slenderwoman, Offenderman, Trenderman. Will you know all the characters in this terrifying compilation? Grab some popcorn, turn off the lights, and let the Slenderman Saga begin. It was a very dark night. Its colors different to the usual ones, since the moon was shining with a red blood color. Looking at that night sky was a true spectacle. But my mind was somewhere else. Those trees were so tall and had so many thin branches that they looked like shadows. And those shadows were coming after me. Or at least, that's how it felt. I was very scared and completely confused because I couldn't remember anything of what happened. I had no idea how I had got to that forest, nor why did I emerge from the depths of that cold river. I walked aimlessly for a long time and I felt my body was getting way too light, as if it was completely empty. I went across the lakes and pastures of that region, which I found pretty easy to do, as if I had been doing it all my life. And it was precisely in those waters where, unintentionally, I saw my reflection. It took me a while to process what I was seeing, since my reflection showed a completely different version of me. That person wasn't familiar to me. Now I had very long black hair, but what really stood out was how I no longer had any facial features. My face was completely blank. After witnessing that, absolute horror took over me. Although, only for a moment. As incredible as it may seem, I soon got used to my new reality. I was no longer afraid to touch my new face, with no signs of eyes, nose, or mouth. I soon realized that despite that, I could still see and breathe with no issues. How could that be? I also noticed my new attire. They were clothes I would normally never wear, and I don't remember ever owning them. I also couldn't remember what I was wearing when I arrived at that place, but I was sure I wouldn't put on such a tight black suit. Something else that caught my attention was how I had not eaten anything in a very long time, but I felt no hunger regardless. As I got more and more used to my new reality, I felt more comfortable in that forest. I've always been scared of dark places with no people, but for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. A feeling of safety and love inundated my surroundings as I observed every leaf that fell to the ground. Those trees, scary to me at first, became my friends and protectors who would always offer me a place to hide. And then, out of a sudden, I experienced a new feeling. I needed to find a person, although I didn't completely understand why. I headed to the roadside and I hid behind the bushes to wait for a car to appear. It didn't take long for the first vehicle to show up. A blue car was coming closer in the distance and I could distinguish its front lights perfectly. I waited patiently, and once it got close enough, I jumped to the road, placing myself right in front of that common vehicle. The blue car, trying to evade me, ended up flying off and doing turns in the air until landing in the depths of the forest. When I saw it, I rushed towards it, pushed by a devouring instinct that also seemed strange and unfamiliar to me. When they saw me, the people from the vehicle tried to flee in horror. They were on the floor, injured and crawling in desperation, but I wouldn't allow them to escape. Long tentacles emerged from my back, which little by little ended up destroying each and every one of them. I heard them crying and screaming in pain as I crushed them with my strength. This sensation was incredible. I was enjoying myself like never before in my life. Soon after, I realized that an unconscious girl was still in the car. With the screams of her companions, she started to wake up, looking completely confused. They were her family, and the first thing she did was scream, asking for their whereabouts. I carefully got closer, and she looked at me directly. And although she was surprised at first, she then seemed to no longer care. And as if nothing happened, she asked my name. "My name is Slenderwoman," I told her. That was the first time I pronounced out loud and heard my new voice. That girl with her sweet face responded, "My name is Alondra, although I like to be called Aloe. Pleased to meet you, friend." I was paralyzed. She didn't see me as a monster, but as a normal woman. I grabbed her hand, and as we vanished in the night's fog, we talked about many things. Her kindness saved her, for now.
It was an early summer afternoon. Becky and Tiffany were having a picnic in a dense park. They were celebrating the end of school. They had passed all their subjects and they were very happy. The sun was shining and there wasn't any cloud in the sky. The girls were laughing and enjoying a delicious meal they had prepared. In just seconds, the sky went dark. Gray clouds rapidly covered it all and it started to rain heavily. The girls started getting their things together. The little party was over. They saw lightning in the distance and then heard a strong thunder. A storm was coming. They were quite far from home, so they got a bit scared. They noticed a weird sound in their heads. They had the feeling the forest was becoming deeper and deeper. The sound got more intense. A shadow appeared among the trees. Behind the girls, it was extremely long. It quietly got close to them. The sound kept growing stronger in their minds. They were scared. It was closer and closer. It was a Splendorman, or Splendid to its friends. Suddenly, it stopped raining. The sky cleared up and happiness reigned between the girls again. They set the picnic up again, ready to enjoy life and the peaceful snack in the park. They laughed and laughed. Becky and Tiffany had been victims of a Splendorman, who had rewarded them with a dose of happiness. Today, we're gonna leave creepypasta aside and talk to you about happy pasta, which is kind of the opposite. They are stories thought to cheer readers up and make them happy. Any creepy worthy of its name has its happy counterpart. And in Slenderman's case, we can find Splendorman, his charming older brother. We all know Slenderman is a terrible monster with human shape, more than 2 meters tall with pale skin and without facial features. He wears a dark suit and a tie. His hands look like those of a human, but his fingers are longer and bonier. He also has tentacles, which he can stretch as much as he desires. Splendorman's anatomy is similar. He is also disproportionately tall, a bit taller than his brother. He is thin with pallid skin, but he does have a face, 2 big black eyes and a great smile. Even though his suit is also black, it is decorated with fun color polka dots and a beautiful red bow tie, and he always wears a nice top hat. Splendorman's tentacles have bells on their ends that cheer anyone up, and sometimes he also carries a gold cane. People say the 2 brothers don't get along well. This is, of course, due to the fact that Splendorman and Slenderman are basically opposites. We could say one is light, while the other one is darkness. Splendorman is a creature that appears to those who have been especially kind to others and enjoy life. He loves entertaining people and making them smile. He encourages people to be good and he gives them flowers and balloons. He likes dancing to keep them entertained, and if things go well, he can even sing. He loves seeing smiles around him. His main ability is being able to improve people's mood. He can also interrupt technology, teleport himself, and throw glitter. Is there any superpower cooler than that? Just like Slenderman, Splendorman can't be seen at first sight if he doesn't want to be seen. But not only that, he can also let some see them and not others. The origins of this character are on YouTube. Splendorman was born as a parody and is a creation by Neil Cicerega, a US comedian, movie director, and musician. Despite its being a happy pasta, there are rumors that say Splendorman has a dark side. Even though he tends to be kind, When he gets mad, he acquires a more frightening appearance, but this hardly happens. Without a doubt, Slenderman's legend is one of the most horrific and famous ones on the internet. But Splendorman doesn't lag far behind, and he's becoming more and more popular. Remember, you have to be a kind and nice person for a Splendorman to appear to you. However, be careful, TikTakers. If you go deep into the woods and a tall and sinister figure appears, don't trust it until you can distinguish its appearance, because under that shadow, a dark and terrifying being could be hiding.
Welcome to a new Scary Tuesday, TikTakers. Today, we introduce you to another member of the Slender family, Offenderman. This character is dressed in a trench coat and black boots, and on occasion, he also wears a black tie and hat. Although these two clothing accessories are optional, he doesn't always go with them. He is mostly depicted with a muscular and well-sculpted body. His tentacles are white instead of black, and he often leaves trails of rose petals at his feet. Offenderman is also known by the name of Sexual Offenderman, referring to his way of being provocative and sensual. He tends to use his charms to attract victims and then assault and abuse them. It is important to mention that although Offenderman's preference is young women, he will look just about anyone, regardless of age or gender. He prowls the urban area. He's usually close to towns and cities, unlike Slenderman, who lives in the forests. The reason is not clear, if it is because they don't get along and prefer to be in separate places, or if he simply wants to be closer to people. His way of acting is usually as follows. He looks for a victim who is alone, and he hides in the shadows long enough so that she cannot make out their features. Afterward, Offenderman will offer her a rose. If the person accepts it, regardless of whether she knows its meaning, the character will take her, annoy her, and then leave her stranded somewhere embarrassing, with no memory of what has happened to her. The victims suffer from Slender syndrome for a time, with effects varying from person to person. Symptoms can range from a headache, stomachache, rashes, to even nosebleeds. However, they always agree on something. They all have nightmares and sensual dreams with their attacker. Not all of the victims return, but Offenderman hides their bodies, unknown what he does with them. On the other hand, if the victim doesn't accept the rose when Offenderman offers it, he will constantly harass the victim in the most outlandish ways possible. From stuck-in the furniture in her house, opening windows, leaving dead animals in the bathtub, or even appearing for tenths of a second out of the corner of her eye. He will play with the victim, scaring her until he gets bored and will leave a trail of rose petals for her to reach him. Despite being weaker than Slenderman, Offenderman is still one of the most dangerous creepypastas of all time. Would you accept the rose? Today, in Draw to Life TikTak, we introduce you to Trenderman, the stylish cousin of Slenderman. Unlike his relative, he hasn't inherited evil. It isn't considered a creepypasta, but this hasn't stopped some users from being terrified. The origin of this character dates back to July 31st, 2012, when a Tumblr user uploaded an image of a mannequin that looked similar to the famous Creepy and published it under the title Slenderman's Casual Friday. Trenderman's name would come a day later, when another user responded to the photo with that original name. He has a psyche similar to his cousin, although his way of dressing is different. We usually find him represented in a brown sweater or vest, white shirt, and brown pants. Although this isn't his only outfit, because his passion for fashion makes him change his outfit from time to time. His skin is somewhat darker than Slenderman's. It has a slightly tan tone. Some fans have also gotten used to drawing him with glasses, and although he isn't usually seen, some say that he hides his tentacles under his clothes, in that instead of black, they are white. He's very presumptuous. He's enthusiastic about helping others find better wardrobes. He likes that they are fashionable. In fact, he has been seen in some representation trying to convince Slenderman to change his style.
It isn't very well known if he does it in order to contribute to his physical improvement or if it is a necessity for him and he cannot bear to see sloppy looks. Because when he sees someone without style, he explodes in drama. As for his way of being, although he isn't as affectionate as his other cousin Splendorman, he is kind to people. They say that his flirtatious character sometimes makes him seem superficial and frivolous. But as soon as you talk to him, you understand that he's just an obsessive lover for elegance and style. Besides his special taste in fashion, it is unknown if he has any other super developed abilities. However, several theories suggest that his power could be related to the garments. Some say that he can change the textures and colors of the shirts, and that one of his greatest abilities could be to turn everything around him into woolen clothing. Did you know this character from the Slenderman family? We read you in the comments.
I remember when I was a teenager finishing high school. My classmates hated me. I felt how they judged me all the time. Coming home on the last day of school was hell as usual. The boys who passed me by shouted horrible things at me, as if they hated me with all their souls. I thought about it and didn't understand why they did it. A thought haunted my head more and more. What if those guys went from words to hands? If my life was to die little by little every day, why not do it quickly and painlessly? I was so blind. If I had known what I know now, I wouldn't have dared to take that step. I took a rope from the basement and left the house. I hated my parents, but not enough to kill me in front of their eyes. I went to one of the most remote neighborhoods in the city and chose the loneliest alley. As I was about to do so, an old man turned the corner and met me head on. He tried to talk me into changing my mind, but I asked him to leave me alone. He insisted, saying he could help me. Without giving me time to respond, he grabbed my arm tightly and dragged me into a building, locking the door behind us. He was a sinister scientist with a strange proposal for a new life. He had done extensive research on anatomy, and after many experiments, he believed he had the formula for manipulating the human form. Turn a subject into any other person, including giving them other physical configurations. Obviously, I had my doubts from the beginning. I was desperate but not crazy. I asked him about the process, but he told me a lot of technicalities that I didn't understand. Finally, he produced a contract on a piece of paper and practically demanded that I sign it. Once again, I objected, but he replied with a smile that I had no choice. Suddenly, he took out a syringe with a green liquid and stuck it in my neck. Everything went black and I lost consciousness. I woke up strapped to a chair inside a small glass chamber. On the other side of the glass, the scientist refused to give me an explanation. He just asked me to let go and prepare to go down in the history of modern medicine. He activated one of the controls in front of him and began speaking into a microphone. Ready to begin experiment 84B. I struggled with all my strength to free myself, but it was useless. Activating first node. A bolt of energy pierced through my body, shattering my being into pieces. I couldn't even scream. My vision became blurry and suddenly I was blind. Jack's appearance begins to warp, activating the second node. The pain increased, and I felt my mouth and eyes close. The subject's face is completely transformed, ready to activate the third node. Suddenly, an alarm siren began to sound, and the scientist became very nervous. No, the face and limbs haven't fully developed. Abort experiment. The last thing I heard was a huge bang. When I woke up, the place was reduced to rubble. I could hardly see. It was as if a bandage was covering my eyes. I felt as if my mouth had been sewn shut with a needle and thread. My nose was also closed, but somehow I didn't feel the need to breathe. Getting up my arms and legs felt weird. It took me a few moments to regain control over them. I walked a few steps, and among the rubble I saw a huge smashed computer next to a dismembered foot. The trail of blood led me to a hallway that led to a door. I opened it and ran into a policeman who was inspecting the place. Seeing me, he screamed and ran off. I tried to call him, but he couldn't speak, so I went after him. As I ran, I felt as if my legs were changing, as if they were growing with each step. I soon caught up with him and tried to stop him, but suddenly a tentacle came out of my back and savagely pierced his chest. I looked at the dying body on the ground, with a huge hole in the torso, not understanding what had happened. I fled from there terrified, and again followed the trail of blood on the ground, which led me to the scientist. He lay on the ground, trapped by a collapsed beam. I thought about picking it up, and at once the tentacles came out again, pushing it away with little effort. But they didn't stop there. They lifted the man's body into the air and slammed him hard against the wall, spattering me with a shower of blood. I walked in a state of shock until I found a door that gave access to a bathroom. I wanted to get rid of all that blood, but looking at myself in the mirror, I was paralyzed to realize that I no longer had a face. Since then, I've been living in the nightmares of teenagers and adults alike, all because of that damn madman. I'm a lonely creature, but I would like to have someone to talk to, so I approach people, especially the children. They're the only ones who don't see me with fear. But I can't always control my body. Sometimes I make a mistake and someone dies. It's not my fault. I swear I didn't mean to, but I've completely lost control. I don't know how to be a normal person anymore, and around me is always evil and death. That's why I want to ask you a favor. When you see me, don't run away. Try to get close to me and talk to me. It would mean a lot to me, and it could be the thing that saves your life.
Slenderman is a human-shaped monster. He's very tall, more than 2 meters tall, and his face is white and featureless. He wears a dark suit and a tie. Nobody knows whether this is his actual skin adopting that shape or just the clothes he uses to mix up with people. His hands do look human, but his fingers are longer and bonier than usual. On top of all of this, he also has tentacles, which can reach as far as he desires. Nobody can see him if he doesn't want to be seen. He can even decide who sees him and who doesn't at the same time. People say in the beginning his behavior was very aggressive. He followed his victims incessantly until he impaled them on trees and made their organs disappear. But his actions have changed a lot as time went by. Now, Slenderman observes in the shadows and hounds carefully without any kind of interaction, taking the victim's soul little by little. Those stalked by him start to become forgetful and unstable. They soon realize they don't have a social life anymore and they are isolated from the world around them. It gets harder for them to go out and a lot of them end up losing their jobs. He has the capacity of driving his victims crazy, and when they don't have anything else to offer, they disappear and nobody sees them ever again. People say you can know it when he's around, since he interacts weirdly with electronic devices and causes interferences with recording devices. Radios, cameras, recorders, or televisions are especially sensitive to his presence. He's been capturing pictures, but always when he's too far and can't affect the camera. Slenderman stalks both children and adults. When the victims are kids, he usually gets close to them nicely in the beginning and tries to win their trust. Right after, he makes them disappear when they go into the woods alone or when they try to go back home. Actually, the character was born for a contest on the Something Awful forums in 2009. Participants had to upload a retouched picture, a scary one. One of the users uploaded a picture with children playing in the park, and in the background, hidden in the shadows, you could also see the figure of this strange and pale creature. The picture surprised everyone so much that it ended up becoming something bigger. People started uploading pictures on the internet with his gloomy image, and a lot of them started giving him special abilities and making up more details about him. Obviously, his story is similar to other stories from the past, such as the German legend of the Grossman, a super tall and terrifying humanoid who lived in the woods and took children who misbehaved. The story of the Boogeyman is also similar to Slenderman's. This creepypasta actually went too far when, in 2014, 2 girls from Wisconsin stabbed 19 times another girl with a knife, because according to them, they had to prove something to Slenderman. After the murder, they were planning on escaping and finding shelter at the mansion of the devil in the woods. Luckily enough, the stabbed girl did not die. Slenderman's fame grew so much that different web pages about him were created, such as Marble Hornets or Everyman Hybrid. In 2012, the video game Slender The 8 Pages was released, and only a year after, the game Slender The Arrival came out. In both of them, the players had to gather different notes while Slenderman was following them, to avoid dying. In 2016, HBO released a documentary about the 2 girls that attacked their friend. Beware the Slenderman. He has become so famous that the movie Slenderman, based on him, is expected to be released in 2018.
Without a doubt, the legend of Slenderman is one of the most terrifying ones on the network, and it never stopped growing. But remember, don't believe everything you read or see on the internet. The creepypastas are made-up stories, and nobody should take them too seriously. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, and if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!